lay my linings right side up and open. And I'm going to take my main pieces and lay them open and right sides down so that they are right sides together. I'm going to line them at the center fronts, center backs, shoulder seams. I like to nest my shoulder seams. I actually often will also top stitch my shoulder seams. This is one garment I really like to top stitch everything. I'm going to try not to top stitch everything on this one just so my video isn't a million minutes long for you guys. Okay, and now what we're going to do, now that we've pinned a few places around the neckline, is we're going to sew all around the neckline. And while we do, we're going to add in a 1/4 inch elastic. The seam allowance is only 1/4 inch, which is small, but I find it helpful when you're sewing in the elastic, either on a machine or on a sewing machine or on a serger, to use the elastic as your seam allowance guide. Instead of sticking it 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, you can just stick it all the way up to the edge and know that that's your full seam allowance. I usually like to turn my knife off unless I'm cutting off these little serger tails, because I do not want to trim anything off. It's 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you're doing an inner lining, this is 3 layers plus elastic. You might want to baste your inner lining to your lining, or even all 3 layers. If you aren't very comfortable working with athletic knits and elastic, that way you know you're getting all the layers that you need to get. But now we're just going to serge this on. There's no need to stretch or pull your elastic. It's just to add stability all around. Make sure the sports bra is doing its job of holding everything in place as much as it will. Just double checking I'm getting all those layers. I have my center notch, so I'm going to turn my knife back on to trim my center notch off. The reason why I turn my knife off around most of the neckline is because you don't want to nick your elastic. Most elastics are going to shred or unravel if you nick it, so you don't want to do that. And since we're not trimming off any seam allowance, there's really no need to have the knife on and worry about nicking it. You don't need to stretch your elastic at all, but you do not want to ease it in either. You don't want to add any length to the neckband measurement. If you feel more comfortable measuring it out, you can always do that. I find it much easier just to feed it through and leave it on my big spool. Remember, if you are doing it like me, where you're not measuring it out, these curves you want to match this inner circle. So you don't want to ease it in where you're matching where it is wider. You want it meeting that smaller inner circle when it curves. I am using swim elastic for a couple of reasons. One is because I have it. Doing this pattern during the COVID-19 quarantine, and I used all my other 1/4 inch elastics making masks. So I have my swim elastic still, and that's one of the reasons why I'm using it. Another is because it's really soft It's really stretchy. It's easy to work with. I like a cotton swimwear elastic is what I'm using. And also it will hold up. It'll even hold up in chlorine if you wanted to make a swimsuit out of this top. Okay, so I'm going to and look, I missed a little part. That's why I was saying you could baste it. I missed it along that very sharp curve on the back. So I'm just going to go back over that, making sure I get this lining layer pulled in there. Okay, now you can pull out or flip, however you want to call it, your mane to the top and your lining to the back. This would be all sewn around the neckline. You do not want to top stitch yet, even if you would like to top stitch. Don't top stitch yet. We are going to sew the arm size using the burrito roll method. So I'm going to lay mine out, open like this. I'm going to sew this arm side first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll like a burrito from the bottom to this side. Now I'm going to take this little tiny strap and I'm going to cover up, go around the one I just burrito rolled to meet it. So the other strap is inside this strap. And here's my bottom. I'm burrito rolling to this side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom layer, the lining, I'm going to flip it to match right sides together, and I'm going to pin along the arm side. And as you can see, the other side that I burrito rolled is now rolled up inside between my mane and my lining. We're not sewing the side seams, we're just sewing the arm size, so you're gonna leave those side seams. The razorback can be a little confusing because they're very small. So I'm going to open mine back up just to show you one more time. Here it is opened. And I'm going to roll the bottom like a burrito to this side. And I'm going to flip my lining to match my mane. And you know what? I'm pinning on the wrong side, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. My burritoed one is going to go inside my mane. Not my mane, I'm sorry. My burritoed one is going to go inside. I'm actually going to switch my pins to this side. So I like to just make sure that I'm attaching my elastic to the main side every time. I find it flips out and easier, much nicer. So as you see, I added it to the main fabric right here, and I'm going to add it to the main fabric here as well. I'm going to attach the elastic just like I did on the neckline. Remember these curves right here, you're matching the inside smaller curve. You don't need to stretch but you do not want to ease it in. If you ease it in, you're going to end up with a little bit of gaping around the arms, which is never what you want on a sports bra. You want it nice and fitted and tight. Now, these little guys, you can either turn your blade back on, or just make sure to trim nice and tight right before you go over that section. When you go over this seam, it is a little thicker. When you're sewing down this, it's really important to make sure you do not catch that inside burrito in there. So I always just like to double check, make sure it's nice and over. These are smaller straps. So you just want to make sure you are not going to catch any of this inside burrito. It's nice with stretchy fabric that sometimes you can pull it over a little bit if you are nervous. You don't want to stretch too much though. You'll get wave or pull it out of proportion. Got a little thread from the inside burrito wanting to poke out. Make sure you go nice and slow along these curves. Make sure you're getting both layers nice and even. If I miss spots, that's tend to be where I miss them by going too fast around those curves. Want to double check that I have everything nice and neat. I'm gonna go over this little section where it is only my inner lining and my main one more time, just because the power mesh is very thin. I just like to make sure that's nice and secure because the power mesh is very thin. So now it's time to pull it out. Since my back is much smaller than my front, I'm going to pull it through the front. You just reach in, you grab your burrito rolled part right here and pull it through. These straps are smaller, so slow and steady wins the race. You don't want to pull too hard. Okay, so now I have this arm size sewed up and my neckline sewed up. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Burrito rolling this side to this one and sewing this arm side.